It really was a big back book month, okay? I really put my whole Judy booty into reading last month. This is, I almost said directed by. This book is so complicated. It's not that complicated. Hey y'all, welcome to a new video. Today I would like to talk about all the books that I read in July. July was a very good reading month for me. I definitely read more than I watched movies, which usually doesn't happen. I had a lot of really good reading challenges last month. You can go check out those videos definitely on my channel to see more in depth of what I read and my more in-depth thoughts if you would like to. Starting off with some stats, I read 14 books last month. That is my most successful book reading month probably since I was like 10 or 11. When I was a kid, I was homeschooled and I had a lot of time to go to the library. Basically, what I did all day was read. And when I would go to the library, I think that the max you could check out with a library card was 20 books, and I would max that out and then read almost 20 books every 2 to 3 weeks. And so maybe I've been chasing that high since then, I'm not for sure, but I am very proud of the amount of books that I read last month because it was a lot. That equaled out to 5,947 pages. So that's almost 6,000 pages that I read in 31 days, which is pretty cool. Let's look at some stats from Storygraph. Thank you, Storygraph, as always, for existing. Please forgive me for looking down at my laptop. I'm standing up, as you can tell, and then my laptop is just like right below my camera, so please forgive me for looking down. Anyway, when we look at moods, I had 9 books that were labeled dark. I had 6 books that were labeled tense, mysterious, and emotional. And as you can see, there's just a lot of genres on this list. It's a very colorful list because I read a lot. Like, I read a lot of different things. I was jumping around between genres, and it's nice. It's nice to see this much variety for sure. When we look at page number, I had 2 or 14% that were under 300 pages. I had 6 or 43% that were between 300 and 500 pages. And then I also had 6 or 43% that were over 500 pages. Last month wasn't just, oh, I read 14 books, that's such a big number, that's my biggest number since I've been on this channel. No, like, I read big books. It really was a big back book month, okay? I really put my whole Judy booty into reading last month. When we look at genre, we have 5 romance as the highest genre. And then I have 4 books labeled erotica. Thank you, 50 Shades of Grey. And then 4 fantasy, yay. And then we have such a nice variety. I've got literary, horror, historical, and contemporary all at 3. When we look at star rating, okay, this is where the truth comes out. My average star rating was 3.21, which is kind of low. Thank you, 50 Shades of Grey. We had 2 1 stars. We had 2 2 stars. We had 4 3 stars. We had 3 4 stars. And then we had 3 5 stars. Another healthy variety. Okay, so usually when I do these reading wrap-ups, what I do is I just start from the first book I read up to the last book I read. But since I read so much last month, I want to do highest rating to lowest rating. And I also added timestamps down below. So if you don't care to listen to like what my 2-star reviews are, you're like, let's just get to the 1-star girl. You can click around, jump around, go to whatever rating you want to, see what you want to see. I also added timestamps to a lot of older videos. So if that's something you're interested in looking at, do so. Okay, we're gonna start off strong. We're gonna start off with the 5 stars. The first 5-star book that I read last month was Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez. Is it Mariana or Mariana? Please forgive me. I think it's Mariana. I felt so attached to so many characters in this book. I read this for like the highest and lowest rated horror books on my TBR. This one was so good. This is the kind of book that honestly like makes you feel proud to be reading. Like, I felt like, oh, I'm so cool for reading this book, honestly. And it's also the kind of book that like halfway through you're like, okay, I need to read all the rest of this author's books. And that's what I did. I put all of the other authors' writing and works into my TBR. Like, I really trust this author. I really do. Okay, it's freaky. It really is. It's about a family, okay? It's between different perspectives. It goes between different point of views within the family and mostly focuses on the son, but it starts off with the dad's POV. And what has happened is their mother has passed and he's trying to protect his son from his mother's family, okay? His wife's family, because they are a little freaky deaky, okay? They have definitely been dabbling in some dark arts, if you will. And if they get a hold of the son, if they get a hold of their grandson, of their nephew, whatever he be to them, basically it's kind of bad news bears for the son. So that's why the dad is kind of on the run a little bit, trying to keep him away from that side of the family. But I don't know what it is. Like, the evil never really leaves, right? Like the evil is within the family and the evil's gonna stay within the family is kind of the vibe. It's freaky. Like I said, there are a lot of really good side characters to this. It's set in Argentina, if I'm remembering correctly, and just the vibes were different. Like it was really cool to read a book like based in South America, like a horror book based in South America. That's definitely not something I pick up every day. So yeah, it was really unique to me and I loved it. Like I gave it 5 stars. It was just, it was one of those books, you know, halfway through you're like, yeah, this is gonna be a really good book, isn't it? And that was really fun for me. Next we have, I actually have this one. I can pull it off the shelf. Next, I read Slewfoot by Brom. This is a really good, like, Puritan witch story. Like, it's in the Puritan era, and her husband has died, and so she has to, like, keep up the farm that he left behind. But then they're really religious, and they have a lot of really interesting rules when it comes to religion. She's trying to comply with them, but also, like, trying to do her own thing. Some people grant her brevity. They let her, you know, deal with her own grief. Some people are out to get her, however. And it ends up being a really, really, really good revenge tale. I think I would suggest this to about anyone. If you like witchy books, if you like revenge tales, I could not recommend this one enough to you. I would say that this is for the religious trauma girlies, but I do believe that that title is better fit for the next book that I'm about to talk about, which was Educated by Tara Westover. I'm sure that if you're in the reading space at all, you have heard about this book. It has been wildly critically acclaimed. It is like the best. It was named, I think, in the top 10 of the best books of the 21st century, and it came out like a year ago, 2 years ago. So that's pretty cool for sure. And I do have to say that it is very deserved because this book is amazing. It's a memoir about a girl who grew up in a fundamentalist Mormon household, and she talks about her childhood with her family, her parents, and how they continue to try to control her once she's an adult. It talks a lot about education as well, as you could probably guess. Basically, as a kid, she was not allowed to go to school. Her family believed that the government was too involved in school and school curriculums, and they thought, you know, we can teach our kids better than the government can teach our kids. But then once we actually look at what they're teaching their kids, they aren't teaching them anything, right? Like they're just kind of laborers around the house at this point. And so, you know, our girl, she basically gets like up to a 3rd grade education. Like that's kind of all her mother can teach her. And then from there, she literally doesn't learn anything. She just works at home all the time. Their dad owns like a junkyard. He definitely has some mental illness issues that keep him from making the best decisions for his children. They deal with a lot of really dangerous work in the junkyard. A lot of the kids get messed up. Like they get their legs burnt off, they get gashes in their head. Our girl herself suffers from a lot of injuries. Not to mention there is somebody else in the household who is physically, verbally, and emotionally abusing her. I would say there are plenty of people in this book who definitely emotionally abuse our girl. And what we get to, the point of the story is that she studies, she takes the ACT, she gets a good enough score to get into BYU in Utah. She goes to college, and it's just like, that's her first real bout of education is in college. And I can't even begin to explain like how crazy that must have been for her. There's literally one moment in the book that will stick out to me forever where she's in like kind of a history class, I believe, and she's looking through the textbook, and there's like pictures in the textbook, and she comes across a picture of a man. I believe it's a photograph of a man who is like very starved, like very, like there's clearly something really bad happened to him. And in the picture, I can't remember what the picture is called. I'm sure it's like a famous picture of this era, but the picture is titled like the something Holocaust, like the Holocaust victim or something like that. And she like raises her hand and she's like, I don't know what this word means. What's Holocaust, you know? And the teacher just kind of looks at her and he's like, thanks for that. You know, like thinking that she's trolling him, and she's just kind of like, oh. Like that's the thing, is that like she was never educated enough to learn about the terrible events that happened in the past, like in past history. And that is something that's like so necessary to learn, right? Like how are we going to fix the future if we don't learn about our past? And this book very much focuses on that subject of education is here to help you in the future. Education is here to help your future self, is here to help everyone's future. And the main moral of the story is to never give up on education. You can always be more educated. And that was totally something that I needed to hear, to listen to people, to move places. I love to learn. It's so nice to learn. And reading this book book really opened my mind up to that more, because you think like maybe you have a college degree and you're like, girl, like I did it, like I got a bachelor's, like what else am I waiting for? You can always be more educated. You can always read more books. You can always read more scholarly papers. You can always go get that PhD. Like you can always be more educated. And I know that money is definitely an issue for people. And our girl, she worked so hard to be able to afford the education that she knew she deserved. And I don't know, if she can do it, if she can get out of the scrapyard that she was born into and become as scholarly as she does become, because her story is insane. Like I need to own this book. It's probably like the top 2 best books I've read this year. Like I would feel pretty confident in saying that. I really need to own this book. I want to support Tara Westover. I want to support her book sales. Like this book really spoke to me, and I need to stop talking about it because I need to move on. But Really Educated by Tara Westover is the most 5-star book I've ever given 5 stars to. Okay, getting into the 4 stars. The first 4-star book we have is The Familiar by Leah Bardugo. Looking back, it's not as memorable as I wish it would have been. It's basically a very, how do I even explain this? She has a little power. It's set in like, I don't know the time period either. That sucks. It's set in Spain though. I do know that, like old school Spain. Okay. And it's basically like the time period where Jewish people are not allowed to be themselves. They're not really allowed to practice their religion, and they're kind of being forced into a more Christian/Catholic religion, right? And so our main girl is Jewish and her whole family is Jewish, but they have been like forced into Christianity for years. So they're very used to the customs that Christianity comes with. But now there is something else that happens where she meets this guy who realizes the power she has and realizes that he can amplify her power. There is like a tournament going on where the king, like the main, like, you know, the person who's in charge of the land, I don't know actually if it's a king or like what he is, but he's looking for the most powerful person. And so they enter into this tournament to try to win that because they know that it could be good for their people in the future, like something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of side characters along the way, and I'll be so honest, I forgot a lot about this book. It wasn't, like I said, as memorable as I wanted it to be. I remember that the ending was very good. I really, really loved how the book ended. I love a tragic ending, and I think that this one was just tragic enough, like borderline, very satisfying, but also like we kind of still get what we want in the end despite the tragedy. Like I said, there's like a competition element to it, but honestly it felt like such a side story. Like if we had been more in depth and like delved more into the competition side of things, I would have enjoyed this book a lot more. Like I think that this book would have definitely benefited from, like, I don't know, another like 200-300 pages even. Like I don't care, make it an 800-page book. I really don't care. I would have read it all. Leigh Bardugo's writing is amazing, and I gave it 4 stars mostly for that. Like the enjoyment factor was great, but looking back like a month later, I don't remember a lot about this book, sadly. The next 4-star book I read was Victim by Andrew Borrega. It was fun. It was eye-opening. It was educational. I definitely learned a lot with this book. It's basically about a boy who is Puerto Rican, and his family, his mother moved to the Bronx when he was a kid. His father still lives in Puerto Rico, and he has dealt with a lot of tragedy in his life. He's been a victim of, you know, gun crimes. He's been a victim of racism. He's been a victim of just being a poor person living in the Bronx, right? And when he is getting ready to submit his application for college, his guidance counselor tells him, you know, you don't really have the best grades, you don't have the best test scores, but something that could really get you in is a really good personal story. So he shows him how to use his victimhood in getting a really good personal essay to get into college. The main character, I can't remember his name, but he kind of uses that mentality throughout college. He realizes how being a victim gets him ahead of so much. It, you know, shuts people down from when they are trying to tell him something different or educate him on something different. But he just learns that his victimhood can really move his life along in ways that it wouldn't if he didn't lean into the ways that he's a victim in certain things. But then he learns from people who have been a real victim of the system that there's so much more to life than like relying on your victimhood, that like you can make a better life for yourself no matter what you've been through. And it was, like I said, it was really educational, it was really eye-opening, and most of all it was fun. It was really funny. I was literally laughing aloud at a lot of the scenes, and I love when a literary fiction book can make me laugh. That's really a good indicator of a good literary fiction book, because I don't read a lot of literary fiction. It was definitely fun to like read the book and watch He uses this really great analogy of a roller coaster. He talks about how his career is just going up and up, and he's like embellishing his life story to like seem more like a victim. And then it talks about how like you're at the top of the roller coaster, and then the moment right before it goes down, like, and then while you're going down, like, he just really describes that really well, and I really enjoyed that writing. Ooh, next we have Bathhouse by P.J. Vernon, and oh, I love this one. Okay, it was a thriller about a gay man who goes to cheat on his boyfriend, and basically nothing is really as it seems. Like, there's a lot of things that the boyfriend knows about the main guy. Like, we go between both POVs, and they're both just lying to each other. Like, they're both honestly just kind of fucking with each other the whole book. There's a really good twist at the end. I definitely guessed it. However, there's multiple twists at the end. Like, I won't lie, there are multiple. And one of them, literally, jaw on the floor, I was shook with the reveal that they had. There's a lot of like old characters that come back into the story. It's just like, it was thrilling. Like, I don't know what else to say. Basically what happens is, like I said, this guy goes to cheat on his boyfriend, and the guy that he is cheating with starts to choke him, and he runs away. He's like able to like slice his cheek open, and he's like, you know, running away and everything. But then the boyfriend, like, there's suddenly like all this physical evidence of this assault that happened, and he can't just be like, oh yeah, to the boyfriend, like, oh, I was cheating on you and it went wrong, you know, like, no, he has to come up with this whole story. The boyfriend like believes it and doesn't believe it. It's just like, oh, it's just, there's a lot of twists and turns. It's very twisty, and I give it 4 stars. It was great. Okay, we are at the 3 stars. The first 3-star book I have is 5 Broken Blades. This is, I almost said directed by, this is written by Mai Corlin. This is basically the poor man's version of Six of Crows. And if you're anyone who likes the basis, like the synopsis, like the world of Six of Crows, like 6 assassins get together to complete a heist, this is a good book for you. Like, I won't lie, this book is not very good. It's not written the way that I love books to be written. I felt like it was very insta-lovey. Like, we have some enemies on the table here, but then suddenly, you know, halfway through the book, they're in love and declaring their literal love for each other. Like, okay, that was really quick, girls. So like I said, it's not the best, but if you like that trope of a bunch of characters get together to complete a task, and it's like thrilling, and they're assassins and they're thieves and everything, like, this is a good, like, you're gonna enjoy this book, okay? Like, you're gonna enjoy it just as much as I did, probably. Right up my alley. The next book I'm really hoping is really good. It ended at a cliffhanger, but not like, I don't know. I don't want to compare it to Six of Crows anymore. It had a pretty good cliffhanger, although I expected what was going to happen, and I would love for the next book to really surprise me. Next, I read Wayward by Amelia Hart. This is a story about 3 girls in the same family line throughout history who have magic, and the trials that they face to help them unlock their full potential. So it's one of those she has to go through trauma to be able to unlock her powers books, which is not my favorite trope. It's not my favorite fantasy. It's not my favorite revenge kind of tale. Like, I think it's a little overdone, and this one doesn't do it in a new or really interesting way that gives it more than 3 stars, obviously. I remember feeling like icked out by it just because of the trauma that these girls have to go through in order to get to the end of the book, in order to unlock their full potential, to get the revenge that they deserve. It was still written really well. I know that I loved Amelia Hart's writing, and I would definitely love to read anything else that she writes. Okay, next I have Claimed by Cupid by Dana is Sally. I gave it 3 stars. I don't know why. I am kind of getting pissed off with this series, to be honest. It's going the way of Marriage and Babies at the end. It's, okay, I'm not even talking about it. Let me describe it first. We have our 2 main characters, Nick and Holly, and Holly has broken up with her boyfriend in the first book. He was, you know, a cheating piece of crap, and she meets this guy who is so much older than her, and they enter into this very sexual relationship, and like, that's what it is. It's like erotica, right? Okay, like, let's not, it's very spicy, very spicy. And each book is like 100 pages. I believe that there's 5 of them, and she could have just put them all together into one 500-page romance novel that has a lot of really good spicy scenes in it, instead of cutting it up into 5 parts, like 5 whole different books. Like, it's starting to piss me off, okay? Especially because I can tell that it's going the way, like I said, of Marriage and Babies at the end. It's just like, that's not my favorite thing at all. Like, I'm here for the spice, but then when we get into the actual like relationship and the actual story, I'm like, oh my god, I hate this. Oh, I'm so excited to talk about this one. Okay, the next one we have is The Black Witch by Laurie Forrest. Okay, this book is so complicated. It's not that complicated. Maybe I'm just overcomplicating it. Basically what I'm trying to say is there is a lot that happens in this book. Okay, it is a magical world where everyone is a different race. We have wyverns, we have urisks, we have elves, we have Celts, we have our main girl who's a Gardnerarian, which are like magic people with wands. Okay, like there's werewolves, like there's so many different kinds of people, right? They call them races, they call them ethnic groups. And basically what has happened is that the Gardnerarians, who is our main girl, they have been like slaves to these people, to the Urisk, to the Celts. Like these other groups of people had the upper hand for years. And because the Gardnerarians like had less magic than them, had less power, they were enslaved basically. And then they had a prophecy that a black witch would come up and destroy the people who had them in shackles, and that the Gardnerarians would then be like in power, right? A lot of these groups are all about their religion. They all have their own religious text. There's even like a group of people called the Amaz. I think it's supposed to be like Amazon. Like I think that's like what she's getting at when she says that, because they're all women. They don't have a relationship with a man. They don't date men. When they are ready to like have a baby, or they want to have a baby, they'll have a mating ritual, and that man is only used for the mating ritual. If the baby ends up being a boy, they have to either baby or like give it to another group to take care of. There's only women allowed in this group of people. So there's a lot of tunnel vision with all of these groups. They all think that their people are the best group and that anyone else is less than them. And so basically what happens is the Black Witch has been prophesied, and this is like, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, whatever. And she comes up, she's able to emancipate the Gardnerarians in a way, and then they become the leaders of the world, okay? And so now all of the other groups are now at their mercy. Some of them are the slaves, some of them are the servants. A lot of them are not treated well at all. And so the Black Witch had a family, of course, and then we get to our main girl, who is the Black Witch's granddaughter, and her name is Ellen, I do believe. Her parents are dead. She's been raised by her uncle, and his sister, who's her aunt, she works for the government. And she was like, okay, it's time to like get these kids off to school. Like, Ellen is of age, she needs to go to the school, university, and she needs to learn to try to get her magic and everything, because she has been wand tested to see if she has magic. And basically she does have magic, but everyone's been hiding it from her. Like her uncle hid it from her because he was like, she's too powerful, like we can't let them get a hold of her because they'll use her as a weapon, right? She goes to school, she meets all these other groups of people who she has been told are, savages, scoundrels, bad people. Like they are, they once enslaved her people. Like she has to unlearn all of these biases and all of these racial biases. That's kind of like what it's getting at, is like, it's very white girl learns that racism is bad kind of trope. So like, if that's not for you, I totally get that. I will say, I read this book. I went right into the second book and I got halfway through and I thought, let me take a break. I've been reading this. It's definitely really good, like good fantasy vibes, but I am getting a little tired of it. I picked it back up a couple days later. I finished the last 50% in one sitting, went right into the third book. You guys, the series is getting so good because we're at war. We're at war. We have multiple love interests. I don't want to talk about more than what I want, I can't even articulate what I'm trying to say. So much has happened. So much has happened in the series. If you want a good fantasy series that deals with camaraderie, learning that people aren't as bad as, you've been led to believe they are, it's a very good learning book. When I tell you also, the romance is so good. We're getting so good with the third book. Me, I love a tragedy. Okay, I love when someone is supposed to be the love interest and then maybe they're not. Maybe they're not going to be the real love interest, and this other guy that we have been having breadcrumbs thrown at us for the last couple of books, maybe we love him a little bit more. I know that I do. If you've read this book, if you've read this series, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I believe that there's only going to be 5 books in the series, and 4 are out, and the last book comes out next year. I'm going to consume them. I'm going to inhale the 3rd and the 4th book probably this month. I wouldn't be surprised. And then I'm going to wait a whole year for the 5th book to come out, which is going to suck. But you guys, it's a good fantasy series. If you want a good long fantasy series, I would definitely suggest the Black Witch Chronicles. One more thing I really want to say is that it is a slow burn, which I really appreciate. Okay, we're near the end, ladies and gentlemen. We have the 2-star books. I read 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James, and it's Twilight fan fiction, and I wish that it was good so badly. I really do. I'm not going to go in depth about my feelings about this series because I did a whole video where I read and watched the whole 50 Shades of Grey series. I'll link that down below in case you're curious of my like actual real opinions about it. I got 2 stars because it sucked, okay? The next 2-star book I gave was 50 Shades Freed by E.L. James, which is the 3rd book in the trilogy. And I'll be honest, I do believe that my brain decided to ooze this book out of my ears because I don't remember it. I don't remember what happens. I don't remember the big conflict. I believe it was stupid. I'm sure it was very dumb and immature and annoying. The reason that these 2 books don't have 1 star, I do believe, whereas the second one does have 1 star, and we'll get into that in just a second. I remember liking Anastasia's character. I remember liking that she wasn't just a doormat. Like, she stood up for herself, and she stood up for herself against Christian, who is just this very controlling, terrible baby man-child, right? And she really flips the table on him. It's supposed to be a dom-sub relationship story, and she's like immediately like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, no, I'm not signing your contract. Like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm not signing your contract. And she fights him the whole rest of the books about this whole contract and like his control over her. She stays with him, which is stupid. I would not do that, really. But she stays with him, and part of me believes it's because she believes that she really can, you know, I can fix him. Like, no, really, I can fix him vibes. And she kind of does. Like, she just really flips the script on him, and I really liked her resilience in that. So that's why these 2 books have 2 stars and not 1 star, because the rest of the book is stupid and silly and annoying, and the sex scenes are terrible. Okay, getting into the 1 star, I'm going to talk about this briefly. We have 50 Shades Darker by E.L. James, which was the 2nd book in the series. The reason why this one got 1 star is because we find out what Christian's deepest, darkest secret is. Like, the reason why he is this dominating force where he just wants to like hit women. He describes exactly why that is, and I will not tell it to you right here. I will not spoil it to you right here. You should definitely go watch my 50 Shades of Grey video if you want to find out what that is. It's deplorable. It's disgusting. I hate him. Literally the worst book. Like, nothing to write home about. It was just like, while the 1st and the 3rd book have some extra good points because Anastasia stands up for herself and she flips the script on him and she's like a very independent woman herself, like whatever, all that aside, the 2nd book, the reason for him being the way that he is so immature and stupid and disgusting, and he's terrible, and I hate him. Okay, the final 1-star book that I read last month, the final book that we have to talk about, is The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry. This was the book that made me decide that I am not a Christina Henry fan, that her books are not written for me, that I will not get any joy or enjoyment out of them, and I should not pick up another one. And I think that my sanity will be very sane for that. And I'm glad that I can make that decision for myself, because what tends to happen is if a new author that a lot of people really like comes out with a book, I'm like, oh, I should read this book too. Everyone really likes it. Look at how high the score is on Goodreads. No, I'm looking into the camera to tell you this right now, Emma, in case you ever need to hear this in the future. Do not pick up that Christina Henry book. It is not going to be good. You're going to waste your time and you're going to hate it the whole time. Don't do it, girl. What this book is about is basically a single mother. She is, I don't want to talk about it. She is cleaning house for this old retired horror director. Basically, the house is haunted. Like, that's the point of it, is that the house is haunted. Like, why is the house haunted? Let's figure out why the house is haunted. I read this one in my, I read the lowest and highest rated horror books in my TBR. I'll also link that one down below. I would suggest that you go watch that, because I give like a really in-depth review of this book and why I hate it so much. And I think that the points that I made were very valid and very reasonable, and I don't have the time to do it here, and I'm also not trying to spoil this book. It's a ghost story about a haunted house, and to me, I hated it, and it got 1 star. Okay, you guys, that's it. Those are all the books that I read last month. I am really proud. I do have to say that I'm really proud of the amount that I read. I was able to just like really focus and love what I was reading. I found a new really good series that I am blowing through right now with the Black Witch Chronicles. The first book, I gave it 3 stars because there was a lot of it that just, I don't know, it just bothered me. I think that I didn't really understand the complexity of the ethnic groups and like how serious this was, because to me I was like, oh, this feels a little weird to read about racism from like a white author centering a white girl. And like when I say white girl, like they're not actually white because they're all magical creatures. Like her skin for one is green, there's other people who have like purple skin, there's some people who have like midnight black skin, there's some people who have silver skin, like they're all like different magical races. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to read a book about racism written by a white author. I don't think that that would benefit me at all. So I think in that department it does lack. However, the magical world that she has created, the way that the book is going now, the way that the love interests are swimming about, I really like that. And honestly, with the third book, it's getting really good because there are so many characters and we are getting so many different POVs. And I think that when you have a magical world that is at war with one another and you just have the main girlie's POV, I think that you really miss out on a lot of the magicalness of these fantasy books. And I think that it's really good that she has added more POVs, right? Like that's irrelevant because I'm not talking about the third book right now. Anyway, the Blackbridge Chronicles, if you want a good fantasy series and you don't mind the whole white girl learns that racism is bad trope, I would definitely suggest that. Educated by Tara Westover, read it. Seriously, go read Educated by Tara Westover. That is going to be my final thought because that was the best book that I read last month. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you so much to anyone who watches my videos, likes my videos, shares my videos, comments on my videos, has subscribed to my channel. Like, you guys literally mean so much to me. And when I see the comments and I see the views that I'm getting, it just makes me want to make more videos. So thank you so much for keeping me motivated. And I really, really love your guys' support so much. Thank you again so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.